everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to make some skirt steak flatbreads with some grilled shrimp. We're going to have some sauteed potatoes, asparagus, and different veggies in here. So let's start by prepping up our potatoes, and then we will get everything start sauteing up for our flatbreads. We'll be using a sourdough kind of crust for our flatbread base in here. So for my potatoes, I'm going to kind of cube all of them up nice and small, and then we'll start getting them on the cooktop over there so that they cook up nice and quick in here. There we go. So again, just a nice small cubing on here. And I always do fried potatoes because my kids always just love the fried potatoes on the cooktop. It's just the best way to have them. So get these cubed. And again, for our main, we've got some skirt steak that we're going to grill up. We're going to make a lovely like herb sauce kind of marinade for it. Same with our shrimp. And we'll grill those up, and then we'll cook up our flatbreads, and we'll add our skirt steak and shrimp onto our flatbreads. So kind of a delicious bevy of food today. I always feel like when I grill outside, I make so many different sides because, you know, grilled food is so delicious. And I only cook here like once or twice a week, so gotta always take, you know, think for it. Okay, so we just about have our potatoes up, and then we can actually go, we'll add these on with some butter and let them start, because these, surprisingly or not, the potatoes are going to take the longest out of everything we're cooking tonight. Everything else can go pretty quick. So let's get this. And okay, so we've got our potatoes. Let me grab some butter. We'll go over there. We'll pop these on. Then we can start prepping up our other veggies. But I do want to get these on right away. Okay. So I've got them on. I'm going to turn them to a medium so they're not super hot over here. We'll put our butter. I always have it preheating so that it's nice and hot when we put it on here. You know, cook off everything. So we'll get our butter around. Again, it should be nice and hot over here. Turn it down just a smidge more. We've got our potatoes. And let me grab my spatula right over here. And we're going to kind of coat these up in our butter. And that way we'll kind of got this nice little butter coating on them. And then we'll let them cook over a medium-low heat until they're kind of nice and crispy and tender. There we go. I'm going to kind of get all of this on here, coat them up. There we go. So I'm going to spread them out nice and flat. Let me add my couple that are jumping off here. And let's let those cook. Now remember, these always are going to take the longest to cook. So we're going to get them on there nice and going. Okay. So we've got our potatoes on there. Again, that's the thing I want on first because that's going to take the longest for it. Let's get our mushrooms sliced up, our onions sliced up, and these are the last things that are going to go on our cooktop over there, and our asparagus, but we'll put those on towards the end. We'll do a quick on them. And then we'll make our delicious marinade for our skirt steak and for our shrimp to have with it. And then we'll start cooking up our flatbreads. And we're going to do flatbread pizza hybrids because that's kind of the way I make my flatbreads, because I make it homemade. And I always consider it, you know, they're kind of in the same family. Okay, we've got our onions. Let's get our mushrooms. That way we can put all of these on there to saute. And I feel like the mushrooms and the flat steak are just going to go really well together. I almost grabbed some Gouda cheese because I was like, ooh, mushrooms, Gouda cheese, flats. You know, that sounds and skirt steak sounds delicious. Okay. And we're using some baby Bellas. They'll saute up nicely. They'll have, I prefer them over white button, but you could definitely use white button for this. And I'm not cutting them super thin because I do like them to have a little bit of body. They're going to saute and, get delicious and get that nice brown crust on them. So a little bit more body works on them. I never put raw veggies for the most part on my homemade pizzas or flatbreads unless it's like, red onions or like arugula or herbs, because I find that sauteing them up first really gives them a much better flavor, brings out that flavor, and gives you less of that bitterness that you get from some raw veggies. So we'll get these last few mushrooms sauteed up and we'll get them going. And then we can make our herby marinade for our skirt steak and our shrimp. And that way we can pop those on the grill here. Okay. And let's get these over there and going on there as well. That way. I want to get my potatoes on right away because those potatoes, again, need to cook a lot longer than everything else. Okay, I'm going to turn this guy down to halfway, and then in a little bit we'll turn it up for it. But we're going to put our butter on here, let it start to melt up, and then we'll throw our onions on here and our mushrooms. It's flying everywhere. It's like Shuffle Puck or whatnot, that game we used to play on the computer back when you had those old school computers. Okay. Let's get our onions on here. So we've got our onions. I'm going to put them towards the back because that's the hottest part of my cooktop. And then I'll put my mushrooms up front so my mushrooms will get a little less of the heat, but can cook up well. And that's nice because I want those onions to really caramelize for this. Okay, let's spread these guys out. And make sure we'll break it apart in here. There's that. I want them in that butter, getting that nice kind of brown butter deliciousness to it. Beautiful. And I'm going to put this last little butter right here in the middle of the mushrooms so that they'll soak up and we'll get that great flavor in there as well. Okay. Let's get our marinade made for our skirt steak and our shrimp here. So I picked up a bunch of fresh herbs from my garden. I'm going to reserve some of my herbs to go on my flatbread, some basil on my flatbread to make some basil, tomato, and fresh mozzarella because I find that is absolutely delicious, like a pizza margherita. So I've got a couple of leaves here. I'm just going to grab a handful of this for some of our fresh ones that I'm going to save over here to use for some of our flatbreads. In here, I've got basil, parsley, and oregano. And we're going to chop and mince this up to make the marinade for our skirt steak. I've got 3 good-sized skirt steaks that we got to marinate up, plus our shrimp. Now, the shrimp we'll throw on the grill at the very end because shrimp take no time at all to cook up. So I don't want to overcook them or have them cook too soon. But the skirt steak is also going to cook up pretty fast. So we'll let them marinate for a little while before we pop them on because they're really only going to need to be on the grill for, 6 or 7 minutes. Here we go. So I'm getting all of my little kind of twig-based parts out of my fresh herbs. I had them washed and drying on my paper towel here. And I have oregano and then Greek oregano and just a regular Italian parsley or flat leaf parsley. And I have 2 types of basil. I have purple basil and my kind of regular basil. Okay, so let's get these last look at all of these. This would be like having a little forest in your meal if you left them on. Okay, we've got that. And now let's get these all minced up. And this is going to make a really delicious herby blend for our our meat here. We're going to add in some garlic and lemon juice and onion powder and garlic, salt, and pepper. That way we'll have just all these great herby flavors to it. It's one of my favorite ways to kind of do things on the grill because it's such a fresh and delicious flavor that just really brings out the fresh cooking of grilling. So here we go. We'll get these again nice and minced up for it. And then we'll make kind of this herby little paste that we can put on our meat. Here we go. And just about. And again, the more cuts you make on your herbs, that more of that fresh flavor that's going to really pop through. Okay. Beautiful. So now we've got this nice little herby melody here that's all minced up. So I'm going to put it on my plate right here. And we're going to make a good kind of seasoning blend with this. Let me grab my silverware out of here. So I'm going to get my lemon and my garlic. We're going to add in a good spoonful of garlic here. And I'm saying a good spoonful, like I've got about a tablespoon and a half there. Enough to really get it a good amount of garlic flavor to it. That will also help kind of marinate it up. And then we're going to squeeze in some fresh lemon juice. And I'll pick out some of those seeds since this has decided to be a seedy one. Here we go. Got one down. And here, and that combination between that fresh lemon juice and the herbs is just going to be so lovely and create a really happy herb. Get those again, those lemon seeds out. And now we're going to add in some olive oil for this. There we go. We're going to do about a tablespoon or so, a nice kind of good drizzle, maybe a little bit more, 2 tablespoons actually. Want enough to kind of really create a nice herby paste. And then let's season it up with some onion powder. We're going to want about a tablespoon of onion powder. There we go. And about a tablespoon of garlic salt, because we've got a lot that we need to season up here. Beautiful.
You have a question, would that be good for bread too?
It would probably be, if you'd have to cut back on the garlic salt and the onion powder and a little bit of the lemon juice, but yes, you could definitely put it on bread. You'd probably want to do less garlic too and have more of an oil base for it, but you could definitely use these fresh herbs and make like a nice sauce for dipping in. Okay, here we've got this nice kind of paste that we're going to put over here, and I've got my shrimp that we're going to put some on, and then our skirt steak. So we're just going to spread it all over here and kind of give up some of this nice kind of flavor on it. And these are just, large shrimp that I put on our skewers. I'm using metal skewers, but if you were to use wooden ones, just make sure you pre-soak them. There we go. Beautiful. And now, so we've got our good little amount on here. Just going to rub it up and down, kind of spread all those spices and on there. Now, before we do it on our skirt steak, I'm going to add a little bit of, I'm going to bring my skirt steak right over here, a little bit of Worcestershire to our herby blend on there. And this is going to help cut through the the fat in the skirt steak and really bring it up. I didn't want it on my shrimp because I want a lighter fare on the shrimp because it's a bit more delicate, but on our skirt steak, this will be perfect. So I'm going to spread this up, and then we are going to spoon it on. There we go. So I've got a good side. I'm going to rub this all over. And let me grab a fork. We're going to flip these over and we'll put the remaining on the other side. And this is going to have a lot of delicious flavor because it is full of all of these fresh herbs that will just pop out and just add so much brightness to our delicious meal. Okay. Let's get this all on here. And we'll spread it up and down. There we go. So we've got our beautiful meat here, nice and ready. And we will let it sit and marinate here for a few minutes while we get everything else ready for our dinner tonight. So I'm going to get my asparagus prepped so that when it's ready to go on the grill, we can just pop it on, or on our cooktop here. With asparagus, you always want to make sure you cut off this bottom inch of it because that is going to be very woody and have not a great texture and flavor, to it. It'll be very chewy. Okay, now let's get our flatbreads starting to go. This is my beautiful sourdough pizza. I'm going to take my lid off here so when we're ready to go in. And we're going to build our first kind of ones. We're going to do a variety of them. And towards the end, once we get our skirt steak on, I'll add the skirt steak to the end product of them all. Now, I always like to put a nice kind of coating of flour on my thing because I'm not the world's greatest kind of shuffler off when it comes. And got my hunk here. We're going to go in, kind of coat this up. And then the nice thing about sourdough kind of base or flatbread base or pizza crust is you don't have to roll it. It's very stretchy and it works really well for just kind of pulling here and to making it the right kind of size. I like to do mine kind of in like a rectangle if I can get it. And then I make sure I've got enough of a slide on here so that when I go in my oven, it can slide. Perfect. Okay, for our first one, let's just do our really simple. We're going to do, kind of like a pizza margarita or a flatbread margarita where we have tomatoes, fresh basil, fresh mozzarella. And we'll cook this one up, and I will make sure to have a very diligent eye on it because I have a tendency to step away and forget about it, and it toasts up really, really fast. Let's get this last bit of tomato on here. So we'll put our tomatoes. Again, we've got our fresh basil here. And then I have some fresh mozzarella, if I can open it. And we'll get this on here. We'll take a chunk and we'll get these guys on here. And then when it pops out of the oven, I'm actually going to drizzle it with a little balsamic glaze. Get one more chunk of fresh mozzarella cheese on here. And let's go pop this guy in our pizza oven that we have. And then we can check on our vegetables that are nice and sauteing here. Okay, we've got our first one in our pizza oven cooking up nicely. So let's take a peek at our veggies over here. They're cooking great. So these are our Yukon Gold baked potatoes that we sliced up. And we're going to season them up towards the end, but I always cook them on their own without spices until the very end so that my spices don't stick to my cooktop here. Beautiful. And they are cooking up wonderfully. I've got my mushrooms here. I'm going to coat them in that kind of little packet of butter that I had melting there. And then my onions are almost to the point where they're almost completely caramelized. I'm looking for that nice brownish color so that we can then pop these on some of our flatbreads. Okay. They are looking gorgeous. Okay. Let's get our skirt steak on. That way we can actually start popping them on. And then we can start working on building our next kind of setup here. So we'll put our shrimp on the very end because that shrimp is going to be very, very quick to cook. I'm going to turn, I've got it all down to a medium now. It's been preheating, it's nice and hot. And we're going to slide these guys on. Beautiful. And these are going to cook up really, really fast because skirt steak is a really thin cut of meat. So it doesn't need to cook for a very long time. I want to make sure I have everything. So we've got them on here. Oh, let me flip this piece over. There we go. And then we will flip them and let them cook over. And then at the very end, we'll throw our shrimp on because, again, we don't want our shrimp to get overcooked. Okay. While we're waiting, I can got my eyes on that one, so I don't want it to get too thing. Let's see. Let's prep our next one that we're going to do in here. Or, I'm trying to think what I want to get. Maybe let's put our asparagus on our grill, and then we can probably take off some of our mushrooms and our onions here in just a second so that we can use them on our finished product. Or our flatbreads, as I say. So I'm going to grab a plate here if it wants to come with me. Yes. These onions are looking pretty close to done. So I'm going to slide these right over there. I'm going to slide these over. We're going to lay our asparagus down on here. And I'm going to try to make a nice thin layer where they're all touching it. So they'll kind of cook up nicely. Because again, I want to have them cooked up partially. And we'll also put some on our flatbreads to add a nice little flavor. I'm going to grab some garlic salt to pop in here. And then we're going to check on our pizza here. Let me grab my garlic salt. And we're going to sprinkle these right over our onions and our mushrooms. And there, let's check out our pizza here. I'm going to see if it needs a rotation. I think we still need a few more minutes, but look at it. It is looking delicious. I'm going to rotate it and let it finish there while we work on our next one to pop in there. So hopefully we'll do great. Okay, let's make up our next one. I'll do a cheesy bread on this one while we wait because that, again, is my kid's favorite. So we'll do kind of a cheesy flatbread pizza. I'm going to add on a nice layer of flour here. And we're going to get a nice kind of coating on here. That way it doesn't stick to my hands. This one got a lot of, I made it earlier, so it had a lot of rise time, which means it's going to be a really lovely crust, but makes it a little bit more stickier than when I use it pretty close to after making it. It's a super simple recipe for this one, and this made a whole bunch of them. It's going to make a whole bunch, but I used 2 cups of sourdough, like active starter, 1.5 cups of milk, or not milk, of water, 5 cups of flour, about a tablespoon of honey, and a tablespoon of salt for this. And then, of course, about a 1/4 cup of olive oil. So let's do our slide. Perfect. We've got a good slide here. I always share that's important so that when I put it on there, it's going to cook up. Let me check. We've got a good timing here. Where's my butter? We're going to put just a sliver of butter on here and some garlic salt. And then we're going to go grab our pizza out here in just a second. But let me grab my butter. I'm just going to do a nice little sliver here. And then we'll break it up onto our pizza so that it can kind of cook up here. And let's grab our cheese. Keeping a good eye on it. I'm not going to burn my first one this time, I know. Oh, where's my garlic salt? Okay. You know what? I think we're going to get that out in just a second here. So garlic salt and a little bit of, this is some Mrs. Dash's blend. Just a little bit of spice. And we'll put our mozzarella on. And then we'll do our second layer of garlic salt on here so that it has that nice kind of cheesy layer. And this is really, because it's my kids' favorite, we'll make it for them. But let's go get this on and we'll get our second one off, our first one off. There we go. Let's pull it on here a little bit more. Beautiful. Let me grab this plate because I don't have it quite on there all the way. But look at that gorgeous pizza margherita or margherita flatbread. We got a beautiful crust on it. Let me see how there we go. We'll let that cook up. Let's get our potatoes here and our veggies a quick stir, then we'll flip over our flatbreads. But again, we want to get these a nice kind of toss in here. And then same here. We're just going to kind of roll them back and forth to kind of coat them on here. There we go. And you can see they're starting to get more vibrant in their colors. And then we'll take off our mushrooms and our onions here in just a few minutes. But let's first flip our skirt steak over and check how that's going. Where did I put my beautiful? Let me grab my things here. We've got a nice kind of cook halfway through. And now we're going to flip it. Look how beautiful that looks. And we're just cooking this over a medium heat, not too high, with our fresh herb blend on it. I made sure my grill was nice and hot before I put it on so we get these beautiful sear marks on it for our skirt steak. And this is going to cook for about, 1 to 2 more minutes on here, and then we'll take it off and let it sit for a second. I'm going to slide my cheese pizza over farther to this edge because this one side always likes to cook up pretty fast. And there we go. That way it kind of cooks up very evenly. Our flame is always on one side of our thing, so you got to kind of work with it. Make sure you get a good even kind of cooking on it. Okay, let's get, I'm going to go grab, we can start making up let's cut up some green onions to go on some of our flatbreads here because we're going to take our cheese one off and then we'll make the next one to put on there because I'll grab those onions off in just a second here. So I've got 4 green onions and we're going to throw these on with our next one because that's going to just add this nice fresh green onion flavor to it. You don't want to saute them up. You want to keep them kind of fresh and it'll be really lovely on our next one. I think I'm going to do like a pesto green onion with our flank steak on it when it comes off, or maybe even our shrimp. So we've got our green onions there. Let's grab our onions and our mushrooms off, and then we'll probably be ready to grab our cheesy flatbread off in just a second. So we're going to get these off. That way we can build our next sets of flatbreads here. So here are our beautiful sauteed mushrooms. And again, I always like to saute up my mushrooms before I put them on either my flatbreads or my pizzas because it gives them a much nicer flavor. And then the same thing with my onions here. I'm going to have them all caramelized up. That's going to give you a much nicer flavor on your end product. So we'll get these. Grab them all out. Slide them off here. I need like a nice ledge to scoop them up on. You know what? Can I do this? I can. Look at that. Think smarter, not harder, guys. And then let me slide these out. And then we're going to grab our flatbread.
You have a question, what seasoning for the veggies?
So for these, I just kept it really simple. I did just garlic salt on them. Now the potatoes, we will give them more of a seasoning with them. But for now, for those, just simple, keep them with their natural flavors. Here we've got our gorgeous cheesy bread off. And look at that beautiful golden crust on there. Just lovely kind of coloring on it. And now we can work up on building our next one. And then we'll take our flank steaks off for it. So let's again put a nice little kind of dusting down. I'm going to grab a handful of my dough. I always like to kind of coat my hands here. That way it just doesn't stretch. And when you're cooking it, that flour will just kind of fall off into the oven. So you don't have a flour taste at all, but it really does help with the slide. And again, you want to stretch it out pretty thin so that it cooks up really fast. I always like to leave my edges, of course, nice and big because, you just got to love that really thick crust on it. Make sure we've got a good slide here. And then for this one, for this flatbread, I'm going to add some pesto on here. So a nice kind of dollop of pesto. We'll do a little bit more. And then we'll put on here mushrooms, onions, and green onions. And then when our flank steak is done, we will, of course, top it with some flank steak and arugula at the very, very end. But let's get our onions, our mushrooms. Beautiful. And then our green onions on here. And then we'll pop a little bit of cheese on there because, you've got to have a little bit of cheese on it. And then we're going to pop this in the oven. We're going to get our flank steak off and we'll get things going. You guys are getting some mood lighting now as the sun starts to set. Okay, let's pop this in our oven. We'll get our flank steaks off. And then we can start kind of getting those set for a minute and let them chop off. Flank skirt steak. You know what? I do this every time. It is definitely our skirt steak. Okay. Let's grab our pan to get our skirt steak off because we're going to saute this up or slice it up. But we'll put it on here. I've got beautiful.
Yeah, question, what do you season the steaks and shrimp with?
So we made a lovely marinade blend using fresh oregano, fresh basil, fresh parsley, garlic, lemon juice, onion powder. So it has just this lovely flavor. I'm going to let this cool for a second and then we'll slice it up. So I'm going to set it to the side because we'll add this onto our flatbreads at the very end. I don't like to put it on there and cook it even more. I like to cook it perfectly here, and then we'll top it at the very end of it. Okay, let's get our shrimp on for here. That way they'll can sit. We can put a couple of these on our flatbread. These only need about, I want to say like a good 2 to 3 minutes to cook up. They cook up really, really fast. So we're going to slide these guys on here. Again, we marinated these with our fresh herb blend. I'm going to just put them on here. And then I'm going to see if I can scrape off again some of this fresh herby blend on here. There's also some garlic and olive oil in our blend as well. And for the skirt steak, we added on some Worcestershire sauce. So we're going to let that cook up. And we'll get this going. And beautiful. Let's take a peek at our pizza over here. There's my thing. We've got it. And then we'll look at our potatoes. We'll season them up. I'm going to give this again a quick rotation because it likes to cook up high on one side. Beautiful. And let me grab my spices. We're going to season this with some garlic salt on the potatoes, some kind of Mrs. Dash's table blend, and onion powder. And for the asparagus, keeping it simple, garlic salt. I love it. Let me give this a quick kind of rotation in that butter that we have on here. And it is lovely. It's getting this nice kind of brighter green color, which lets me know that it's about done and ready to come off. And my potatoes, you can see they're getting nice and got those crispy edges and a lovely kind of saute on it. Let's get our garlic salt, just a sprinkle. And for our potatoes, we'll do garlic salt as well. Onion powder to give you that nice savory flavor. Some Mrs. Dash's original blend. This is the Costco version of it. And I'm going to give these a quick mix. And these will give those potatoes just a great flavor. But honestly, just cooking on the cooktop here just makes it so lovely. Beautiful. Okay, let's check out our pizza over here. I'll bring these back over there, but I think we're just about ready to take this guy off. Let's see how he looks. Looking pretty darn good. Look how beautiful that guy looks. This is our pesto, mushroom, green onions, caramelized onions, and then we'll add flank steak on top of this at the very end. But we'll have it popped right there. We'll let it kind of sit. Let's make our next one out here. Grab a little bit of dough. We're getting down to our last two, which is perfect timing because we're about to lose our light here in a little bit. Okay, so let's get this stretched out till it's nice. We want to do again a nice long rectangle. And this one, I'm going to keep it, I think, fairly simple on here. So let's get it all stretched. This allows it to cook up. Let's see if we got a good slide. Okay, for our base on here, I think we're just going to keep it a plain base because that's kind of what our thing's on. And let's go over, I'm going to put some mozzarella on here, and then we're going to put some asparagus on here, and we'll let that cook up, and then we'll get our shrimp off when we're done here. So should be just about ready. I'm going to put some green onions on here as well. So this will kind of be a base too. And this is going to be a flank steak, green onion, and maybe some shrimp on here. But we're keeping it really simple for this one. And we're going to put some asparagus. So let me get over here. We'll put the asparagus that's sauteing. We'll pop this in the oven. Then we'll get our shrimp off. And then we'll start cutting our flank steak. Okay. So let's give this. And then I'm going to put several of our pieces of asparagus right on top of this guy, just like that. I don't want too many on there because you don't want to overcrowd it, but just enough because we'll also have asparagus for eating. Let me slide this guy. I'm going to actually hold that and then there we go. And let's grab our shrimp off on here. We'll put our shrimp with our skirt steak. That way they fit. Look at that, beautiful. Let's give them a quick flip. Actually, we'll flip them and cook them for just a little bit on the other side. But look how beautiful they are. You've got that nice bright pink color, which means you know that they're going to be cooked all the way through. Beautiful. Okay. Get that on there. And then in just a second, I'm going to leave this lid on there because I don't want them to cook too much that they get overcooked on it. We can start taking I'm going to get a plate. We'll start taking off our potatoes and our asparagus because we're getting down to like the final bit. And then we can cut up a little bit of our skirt steak to throw on there for kind of our finished product. So here we've got our lovely sauteed potatoes on our cooktop here, which just are going to be absolutely delicious. You know, we melted up some butter in the beginning, and these are Yukon potatoes, so they've got a nice kind of waxy texture to them, which I think cook up so well on the cooktop. And then we season them with onion powder, garlic, salt, and a little bit of Mrs. Dash's original blend. And then I'm going to grab my tongs right here because it's a little bit easier to pick them up with the tongs than it is my spatula. And we've got our asparagus that we sauteed and we coated with some onion or garlic salt. So really simplicity here, but it's going to be absolutely delicious. And it's nice because we're almost done with everything. Okay. Let's get these guys. I'm going to turn off all of these guys because we're done. Off on this guy. That way it can cool off. It'll be a little bit easier to clean. Okay. And let's check. Let's get our plate for our shrimp right here because it should be done. So I'm going to grab and turn these guys off while we're cooking our last part. You can see that just lovely little thing. I'm going to move this skirt steak right over here. Now be careful when you have these metal skewers. Don't pick them up by the metal skewer or you'll burn yourself. And those skewers can stay hot for a good hot minute. There we go. Let me grab my little singleton who decided to escape. Beautiful. So here we've got our saute or our grilled shrimp on our kebabs here that we seasoned up with our fresh marinade with our fresh basil, oregano, parsley, garlic salt, garlic, just all this great flavors. And let's go check out our pizza here and let's give it a good rotation. Let me grab my paddle and look how that is beautiful. So I'm just going to rotate it here. We'll give it a second and we'll kind of start getting ready, set up for our last little bit of our dinner here because we are losing the light quick, guys. Will be lovely for us. We'll have the ambiance, but we'll grab that off here in a second. And while we wait for that last one to cook up, I'm going to just slice up one of my skirt steaks to start placing it on our things because it's going to be so delicious. Now, you don't want to cut your skirt steaks as soon as you take them off the grill because then they, like, all of their delicious juices come out. But this is looking beautiful, tender, and juicy. And I always just like to leave them at this like perfect little strip here. And then look, the way I serve them up when we do our flatbreads is I'm going to place them right on top of our flatbread, just like that. Okay, I'm going to grab my last one out of the oven. We'll place that flank steak on, and then we're going to call it a night. Beautiful. Look at this delicious flatbread here. This is our, mozzarella, asparagus, and green onions. We're going to throw some flank steak on it. And then, you know what? In order to give you guys better sight, should I move everything up here real quick? That way you guys got a good view of one last thing before I do my little send off. Okay. So we've got I'm going to slide up our little feast here. We're feeding 10 tonight. So we've got quite the compilation of different delicious meals. Let me grab our flank steak and our... Okay. So for dinner tonight, guys, we have a variety of different flatbreads here. We've got our cheesy flatbread made with mozzarella and garlic salt. We've got our caramelized onions, pestos, mushrooms, flank steak flatbread. We've got our mozzarella, asparagus, green onions flatbread with skirt steak. We've got our pizza margarita, so a flatbread with fresh tomatoes, basil, and fresh mozzarella. And then, of course, we've got our shrimp kebabs. We've got more flank steak for the taking. Our sauteed potatoes that we have them with onion powder, garlic, salt, and a nice herby blend. And then our asparagus. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.